Right, hey guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. Round number 2 of the double-header at Berlin has finally finished, and what could be said about the second race this weekend? It was just as frantic, frenetic and exciting as the first, wasn't it? Some lovers' tiffs in there as well. Pascal Wehrlein and Jake Dennis seemingly falling out. The two Jaguar drivers not overly happy with each other as well. Nick Cassidy not happy with the strategy he was put on, and obviously they're not happy that the favour didn't seemingly get returned by Mitch Evans. It was all to play for, wasn't it? Norman Nato, Sasha Fenestras falling out as well. Bloody hell, bloody hell. It's been a stressful couple of days at the Tempelhof. And it's fair to say they're going to need to lie down after that one, some of the teams and drivers. And yeah, just have a beer by the pool or something. Just chill out for a few weeks and let's do it all again in China very soon. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance. And they go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points. They're sometimes enough for some drivers to do something extra special during a race. And on the very rare occasion, I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you. And as you can see already by that scoreboard, there's a lot of drivers down at the bottom there on minimal points. There is a lot of drivers in this weekend for replacements such as the likes of Sebastian Buemi, Robin Freitz and Nick De Vries, all for their development and racing in the World Endurance Championship. So they've had to take a back seat this weekend, meaning the likes of Joel Eriksson, Paul Aron are in their places. So they're going to be here for this scoreboard into the next one, and then normal service will be resumed and the regular drivers will be repositioned back in again, but obviously the regular drivers are unable to score points because they're not here. So let's kick things off with the race winner then, shall we? Antonio Felix da Costa gets in, taking his second win of the season. And yes, I did say second because fucking bullshit reasons as to why he didn't keep that first one. Unbelievable stuff, but he proves all the haters wrong once again and drove incredibly well this race. He really did. He pulled the trigger at the right moment to get a gap ahead of the cars that were battling behind, and that gap was just enough of a cushion. He pulled a 1.2, 1.3 second deficit, but all the other ones were squabbling for second, third, fourth downwards. He said, right, I'm off and away I am gone. He drove a really clever race, really smart race. The Porsches were up front once again this race, and unlike yesterday's race where they sort of fell back again, this time they stayed up there. They were able to play the little bit more of the team role again, making sure that both drivers got attack mode without losing positions. It worked out a lot better than it did yesterday. They had a practice run yesterday, executed it even better today. Da Costa this weekend has just been faultless. Once again qualified himself inside the top 10, and in the early phase of the race, sure, he got into that top 5 position, and then as the attack modes and everything played out, he made sure that he was in the podium spots and then in the lead, and that's where he stayed throughout the rest of the race from there. Fantastic effort, Antonio Felix da Costa, and it's no less than 10 points to him for that. It really is. 10 points to da Costa. Fantastic effort. Great to see him on the top step, and he's kept this one as well. I'm recording so late in the day that I know he's definitely kept it, and he has held on to it. Fantastic effort. Please for da Costa, please for Porsche. 10 points to da Costa. In second place, we come to Nick Cassidy in the Jaguar. Another podium for him to add to his one that he secured yesterday as well, of course. A fantastic team game once again by Cassidy. Head screwed on, knows what he's doing. Qualifying on the front row, did a really good job and managed his pace well. Not really dropping outside the top 5 at any particular point, to be honest, apart from maybe the attack modes just slipping briefly down. But he drove really well. He drove so smart, so clever, and not only thinking about his own championship, thinking about the team's championship as well, in trying to assist Mitch Evans, and was saying to him, look guys, Mitch has got that second attack mode, he needs to use that. Tell Mitch to go, and he was obviously trying to build the gap so that Mitch Evans could take the attack mode without losing many positions at all. But as it was, they ended up saying, like, effectively Mitch took it too late, and then he ended up getting shafted. Nick Cassidy got overtaken by Ollie Rowland. It was a scruffy end to the race for Jaguar, it must be said. Nick Cassidy saying, thanks very much, guys, for that. Really appreciate it in obviously a sarcastic manner, because Mitch Evans did get briefly ahead of Nick Cassidy in that situation after the attack modes did play out. And yeah, ultimately, he ended up back in P2. As soon as he got past his teammate Mitch Evans once again, he got past Ollie Rowland and was in P2. Now, had the strategy played out as Cassidy wanted to play it with Mitch Evans, maybe he could have gone for that victory once again. But as it was, P2 was the best he could muster up, and the fastest lap points as well. So 19 points for him. Certainly helps his championship. He's got an 18-point gap now, is it, over the next car? He's on 140. And is it Pascal Wehrlein next? Something like that anyway. But yeah, there's a nice cushion, but not comfortable enough for Formula E standards. So he did need that victory, really. But, you know, Nick Cassidy once again driving with a smart head on and secures the maximum points he could do while still trying to play the team game. I'm giving him 11. I'm giving him 1 bonus point for that. I really do feel he deserves that for how switched on he is during a race. He did really, really well. 11 to Nick Cassidy. Finishing in 3rd place again, making double podiums this race weekend overall, it is Oliver Rowland. Of course it is. Ollie Rowland, P3. He just can't stay off the podium, can he? He cannot stay off the podium. He is doing an incredible job this season in a Nissan car that isn't really deserving of these positions he puts it in. He just plays the strategic game so well. He's like a Cassidy in the car. He knows when to attack. He knows when to defend. He knows when to lose positions. He knows when to just sit back and let the race come to him. We've seen that time and time again, and this is proof that Oliver Rowland really has got his head screwed on. Sits 4th in the championship, which is just ridiculous for that Nissan car. It really is. And yeah, he's driving sublime, and I know the Nissan car is obviously got to be good enough to get him up there, but I think Oliver Rowland is extracting more out of that car than deserves to be. He has become a one to watch. He really has. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say he could be championship material come the end of the season, but it only takes, you know, Cassidy, Wehrlein to take their eye off the ball and see each other as more of a threat and forget about Oliver Rowland, and you could really just see it going the other way. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. But for now, fantastic effort by Oliver Rowland, once again driving so well, driving so smart and incredibly cleverly. I'm sort of going the wrong way with this. I've given Da Costa 10, I've given Cassidy 11, I'm giving 12 to Oliver Rowland for that. I really am, because he is driving the wheels off that Nissan, and they have made a fantastic signing in him. I think he'll be one to watch within the paddock. I think every team would want him now. Really, really is. And from where he were last season, I've said it multiple times this season, but from where he was last season to where he is now is incredible. Well done, Ollie Rowland. 12 points to you. Finishing in 4th place, we come to Pascal Wehrlein in the 2nd of the Porsche. So a good weekend overall by Porsche. This race in particular was a good one. P1 and P4. What can be said for Wehrlein's race other than scruffy? Scruffy is the word I would use. Didn't really like the Andretti's very much, did he? Got involved with a couple of little tuffs and tiffs and taffs with Norman Nato, and then in the end just ended up becoming a full-on battering match between himself and Jake Dennis. Some of it was on the limit, some of it was hard racing, some of it was Wehrlein's fault, some of it was Jake Dennis's fault. You know, both drivers were as bad as each other, to be honest. And unfortunately for Wehrlein, it probably cost him a podium. Too busy fighting over Jake Dennis. Probably cost him a P3 there. It really did. But that's racing. He decided to pick his battles. He picked his battles with Jake Dennis, and it didn't work out this time around, but still managed to maintain a P4 finish, which is good points towards the championship. But again, loses more crucial points away from the likes of Nick Cassidy, who finished ahead. It's all points, it's all relevant at the moment, and Nick Cassidy just seems to be on fire, whereas Wehrlein seems to have his head switched on and then he loses it a bit. So let's wait and see. But Wehrlein, I've gone for 8. 8 points. I think maybe generous by a point there, as daft as it sounds, because I think had he not been involved with Dennis as much, he could have had a podium there. So yeah, it is 8 to Pascal Wehrlein. Finishing in P5 after taking his maiden pole position of the season. Unbelievable to say that, but what a turnaround in fortune for Andretti. You know, from P22 and P21 on the grid to P1 and P3, Jake Dennis secures his first pole position of the season and picks himself up 3 points. And here he is finishing in 5th place to mean that he collects 13 points overall this race. But it could have been more. Again, getting involved with Pascal Wehrlein a bit needlessly, causing damage every time you heard contact in the latter stages of that race. It was those two cars coming together. The Porsche of Wehrlein and the Andretti of Dennis, and it was a bit needless. Again, podium possibly went begging there because he decided to pick his fight with Wehrlein over the rest of the field and see what was going on there. But, you know, nonetheless, racing's racing, isn't it? Lucky to finish fifth, really, because he had that one lunge on Wehrlein and ended up losing a couple of places out, but thankfully got him back, so that was lucky. But for Jake Dennis overall, I've gone for a solid 7 for him. Again, I think that's a fair score based on what he did. It was great that he got a pole position. It looked like he was going to be on for a solid podium finish, but just let his head get to him at times with the Wehrlein battle and cost himself points. And cost himself points on the cruel corner as well. A solid 7 to Jake Dennis. Finishing in 6th place, we come to Mitch Evans in the second of the Jaguars. These are like the usual pecking orders we're used to seeing in Formula E now, aren't they? These top 6 were fighting around and you were like, this is where the battle should be. But, you know, most of them have been a bit absent. You know, Evans hasn't had the best of seasons. Da Costa's been a little bit lonely at times. But yeah, overall, it was a great battle. But Mitch Evans. Not playing the team game with the Cassidy squad and the Jaguar team, trying to really work together there. You could see Cassidy was trying to help Evans as much as he could, but in the end he just had to say, no, I've got to do my own thing now, you've screwed me over. And Mitch Evans got overtaken by Nick Cassidy in the closing stages and then locked up into the hairpin and cost himself a further 2 positions. So, you know, he's making his own bed and lying in it effectively, isn't he? You know, Mitch Evans trying to prove that he needs to be the team leader, but it's a big chunk of points behind. I think he's only got 97, is it? 97 points to Cassidy's 140 now. So it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. We know how Formula E is and how chaotic it can be. But Mitch Evans, we've just seen him so error-prone this season, and not to the point where he's retiring, but to the point where he's costing himself positions and points in the closing stages of the race. Nick Cassidy was willing to help him there, but he didn't accept the help, and that is a big issue for me personally. And in the race itself, not only did he not help himself by trying to assist his teammate, he then made his own mistake and cost himself a couple of places. Again, podium position was possible. P6 was the best he got out of it. Similaro 5 to Mitch Evans, and he wants to thank me for that. Tough season by Mitch Evans standards this season. I don't think he was expecting Cassidy to come in and be as good as him. And it turns out he's a little bit better. Middle 5 to Mitch Evans. Securing 7th place and his best ever finish within Formula E at the moment at least. It is Jehan Daruvala in the Maserati. Fantastic drive by Jehan, this. It really is. What a good effort. Solid qualifying as well, actually. I think it was P14, somewhere around that area. So nothing special or spectacular, but a lot better than the back row of the grid where we've seen him for plenty of races this season. Was able to save his energy, just harvest his energy, and not get involved in any trouble. The only time we saw him was in the closing stage of the race when he was attacking Taylor Barnard on that gaggle, and he managed to get him on the final lap. So, you know, a little bit of experience comes in there. A guy that's done 10 races as opposed to a guy that's on his 3rd race. You know, it played out a little bit there, and it did mean that Jehan Daruvala did ultimately secure that P7 over Taylor Barnard in the closing stages. Couple of corners to go as well, wasn't it? It was a late last-minute decider. But Jehan Daruvala picking up 6 points for the Maserati squad, especially when his teammate doesn't score yet again, is crucial for that Stellantis group, and they are happy with that, I would imagine. I'm certainly happy with it. Great to see him up here. For Jehan Daruvala, I have scored him an overall 9 points. 9 points to Jehan. Great effort. Great result. Good to see him score some big points. And was well deserved. Looked like they were going to come in the first race, but he made that mistake. I said he was on for P7 there, didn't I? And yeah, here he is finally getting it, a P7. So it could have been a big haul of points. It could have been 12 for him, but as it was, it's 6. But nonetheless, nice to see him score and have a solid, clean race. 9 points to Jehan Daruvala. And as already mentioned, finishing in 8th place, we come to Taylor Barnard. I was singing his praises in that first race, wasn't I? Picking up a crucial point for McLaren after they've been a bit pointless for the last couple of races. And here he is once again, P8 with 4 points this time around. It deserves to be applauded, it really does. He has been the best of the rookies. Okay, he had that one race advantage over the other rookies that were in this race this weekend. But nonetheless, he still put himself in some great positions, drove cleanly, drove cleverly, made sure he didn't damage the car. He has driven really well and rewarded the McLaren squad with 5 points over the course of the 2 days, which is a lot more than they were going to get with Jake Hughes, because once again, pointless race for him. We'll come to him in a moment. And in the race itself, once again, just drove smart, clever, carved his way up the field. Qualifying wasn't as impressive as it was in the first race, but I think lower down the field he could save the energy better. He's just done a stunning job. The young Brit has done us proud. He really, really has. So for Taylor Barnard, it's 9 points for him for that effort. What a stunning, stunning drive. Really, really pleased for him. I hope he gets another chance in Formula E. I don't mean it at the expense of Sam Bird, of course. I want Sam Bird to get back as quickly as possible. And I hope he is back for the Shanghai doubleheader. But yeah, Taylor Barnard really proving himself that the young Brit has got potential to be a regular Formula E point scorer. So it will be interesting to see how silly season happens in the off-season and whether these rookies that are on the grid at the moment have done enough to prove their worth going into next. Let's wait and see. But for now, Taylor Barnard certainly impressed me. 3 solid races. I hope it's not his last. 9 points to him. Speaking of rookies, here's another one. Joel Eriksson in the Envision picks up 2 points for that team, and they've not scored points since, oh God, I think June 2021. It's been a long time, hasn't it? It really has been. Of course, I know it was earlier this season. I'm not that daft. But yeah, it has been a long time coming for the Envision squad because Robin Freitz and Sebastian Buemi have had no luck, no pace. Error prone. They've just been all over the place. You stick 2 relatively young rookies into their machinery this weekend around, and Paul Aron didn't get the points, but Joel Eriksson did in the second race with 2 points, and I think they'll take those 2. I'm sure they're always hoping for more from a double-header, but when they've had a run that they have had of such bad luck, damage, collisions, contact, they even had it in yesterday's race as well. This time around, a refreshing result to see him secure some points. Joel Eriksson, fantastic effort. Great to see him inside the points. Again, if he can, you know, maybe this is open doors for him for the future and his return to Formula E. Let's hope so. But for now, 9 points to him as well. Solid effort. Well done. Well pleased. Great, great result. Well done. I'm really pleased for him for that. 9 points to Joel Eriksson. Securing 10th place, we come to Jean-Eric Vergne in the Envision. Now, after the great qualifying they had yesterday, this time around in the second race, it unfortunately has not been... It's not gone their way, has it? It just hasn't gone their way. In the lower half of the top 10, and then in the race itself, fairly anonymous was Vergne, it must be said. Yeah, was just always sort of running around this 8th to 12th area, and here he is picking up 10th. That's about as good as his race got, so I don't really know what to say about that. Bit of a shame how they can lose pace overnight, that maybe they've not made set-up changes to go forward. They've just kept it as it was, and they've ended up slipping backwards as a result of that. But for Jean-Eric Vergne overall, it's 6 points to him. Can't really say much about his race. The only exciting moment he had was when his teammate was harpooning Fenestraz into the side of him. So he was lucky to keep going in that situation. But apart from that, we didn't see much of him at all. A solid 6 to Jean-Eric Vergne. Just outside the points, we come to Lucas Di Grassi in the Apt. 2 11th places for the Apt cars this weekend is unfortunate, especially based on their qualifying yesterday. They'd have been hopeful for some points over the course of the weekend from one of their drivers, but sadly it wasn't to be. Lucas Di Grassi just missing out with P11 there, but overall a great race. Qualified himself 12th, I think it was, and finished in P11, so pretty much did a repeat of what Van der Linde did yesterday. However, once again, it's just not quite picking up the points, is it? And when they're only 4 points behind the ERT squad, it was crucial that they could pick up some, and they've ended up coming away with nothing, which is a big disappointment. But nonetheless, Lucas Di Grassi certainly can hold his head up high after this weekend. Didn't go all his own way in the first race, but that wasn't his fault. And this race, we've seen the usual Lucas Di Grassi again, trying to get the most out of the car he can, but unfortunately just fell short of points. So it's going to be a solid 7 for me for Lucas Di Grassi. Well done to him for this weekend overall. Maybe the points that I've scored him overall don't show the full result, but the first race was going well. This race was going well as well. Just sadly missing out on points, which is a great shame. Great shame. But a solid 7 to Lucas Di Grassi. Finishing in 12th place, we come to Jake Hughes in the second of the McLarens. His teammate has wiped the floor with him this weekend. Out-qualified him once and out-raced him in both of the races for a rookie that is only in his 3rd race. That's concerning. That is a little bit concerning. But yeah, for Jake Hughes this race, it looked like it was going to go his way. He was ahead of his teammate for a little while. It looked like they were both going to be inside the points there. 6th and 7th was the best that they were at one point in the race. And then Jake picked up some front wing damage unbeknownst to how that happened. because he was already behind his teammate then and was in and around... Who was he in and around with? Was it been Nato at the time? But perhaps it could have been. But either way, a shame to see him down here in the end and outside the points. But obviously the front wing damage did obviously affect him. He tumbled rather rapidly down to that 12th place and then was able to stay there. So maybe the wing was underneath the wheels and then it fell off so he could keep going. But yeah, for Jake Hughes, I've given him a sympathetic middle of the row 5, and that is a very generous score. I don't know what happened in the race itself, as mentioned. I don't know how that front wing damage came to be about, but did he tag a wall? Did he tag the back of someone? Perhaps, and more than likely, that is what happened, which would be a great shame. But I don't want to criticise him too much because I didn't see it. But nonetheless, I think I have been generous there by maybe as many as 5 points. Maybe it should have been another lottery if it was his own fault. But yeah, Jake leaves this weekend with no points on the board. His teammate Taylor Barnard on 5. That is a big deficit. Big deficit. Let's see what happens in Shanghai. Let's see if Sam Bird returns. But Jake Hughes needs to find his form again because at the moment he's not showing much at all. 5-2 Jake Hughes. Next up, we come to the first of the ERTs, the ERTs. It is Sergio Sette Camara. Very, very lonely this race, it must be said. Sette Camara had the great qualifying in the first race, and you think, Brill, they might have a chance of scraping a point. It fell away there due to many, many factors in the first race. But here today, in this race, not a lot happened, not much to show. Didn't see hardly anything of him. Very anonymous. Obviously, the 2 laps shorter that the race was affects energy, and of course the durability of the powertrains doesn't normally favour the ERT, which isn't very efficient. So that could have been a factor in role for that. But overall, P13 unlucky for some for Sette Camara. Certainly unlucky for ERT this weekend, not to secure at least 1 or 2 points. But this race, they didn't look like securing any points at all. It's going to be a solid 6 to Sette Camara. Don't think he did anything wrong this weekend. Unfortunate for him that it's just not gone his way in terms of the look in race 1 and in terms of the pace in race 2. 6 to Sette Camara. He's done really well this season so far. But Berlin, I think they'll look back and say, yeah, that was a low point. Next up is another rookie in Paul Aron in the second of the Envisions. Unfortunately, down here in P14, not securing any points, sadly for him. But overall, a solid enough race. This weekend overall was unfortunate. His chance of points went begging in race 1. His teammate picks the points up here in race 2. So there were opportunities for Aron to leave this weekend with some points on the board, but it just didn't materialise. This race, it didn't really look like the points were ever going to be possible. He was sort of lingering around the 12th area for like a lot of the race. Here he is finishing in 14th overall in the end. Yeah, it's just one of those, unfortunately. I think it's a difficult one really to judge. I don't want to criticise him too much, but Joel Eriksson did do a better job. And overall for Paul Aron, I've gone for a middle of the road 5 for him. Middle row 5 to Paul Aron for that. Don't want to criticise him too much, but his teammate did ultimately score some points. And that's I'm afraid. Yeah, qualifying again wasn't as good for him, but yeah, was hopeful for points, but it just didn't come his way. Middle row 5 to Paul Aron. Next up, we come to Kelvin van der Linde in the second of the Abt Cupras. This weekend overall for him, it's a shame he didn't come away with some points. He was unlucky in race 1, as mentioned already, finished P11 in that. And then this race itself, qualified on the back row of the grid, which is a bit of a shame. Worked his way up here to P15, but unfortunately couldn't do anything with it other than that. Again, it's probably the inefficiency of the powertrain that played its part in that situation. You think, well, I'm at the back, I can save the energy, but the pace of the race was much faster, so they couldn't save the energy they were maybe hoping to do, and that's why he headed away and wasn't able to climb his way up through the field like we saw so many drivers do in the first day. For van der Linde, I've gone for a generous 6.5. I do feel that he didn't do anything wrong this weekend. Probably the only car to come away from this weekend without massive amounts of damage. You know, he's probably broken an end plate on the wing. I'm sure he has. I'm sure many cars have done that. But he seems to be like the most complete package in terms of bringing the car home in one piece over the course of the 2 days. So that has to be commended for that. And the race itself just didn't go his way at all. Maybe generous by half a point that, but 6.5 I've given to Kelvin van der Linde, and great to see him back in the championship. Maybe he could be a full-time driver soon, because I think he's a decent peddler, you know. 6.5 to Kelvin van der Linde. Next up, it is unfortunately the Mahindra of Edoardo Mortara. Another solid qualifying to get himself inside the top 10 by Mortara. Unfortunately not the dizzying heights of pole position this time around. Was looking around that 6th to 10th area throughout quite a lot of the race, but then picked up front wing damage. We heard a crunch, and it was damage for Mortara. He was able to keep going for quite a lot of it, but then unfortunately the wing structure did actually fall apart in the end. Went underneath the left front wheel, and he had to, I think he had to pit in the end, or did the wing come off? Either way, he lost a lot of time. I think he did have to pit, didn't he? And lost a lot of time, pulled off to the side of the road, pitted, got the wing fixed, got it back under safety car conditions, back onto the pack, and then was able just to finish here in a lowly sort of 15th place area, which is a shame. Again, you know, probably a point or two would have been possible for Mahindra, which would have helped them massively. Not as much as it would have helped TRT or Apt, but it still would have helped coming away from the Berlin E-Prix with 2-point scores on the races, on the double headers. That would have been nice, but as it was, they had a great day on the first day. They were hopeful on the second day, but unfortunately just didn't come to fruition. For Edoardo Mortara, I have given him a solid 4. I'm afraid I can only give him 4. As harsh as that may seem, he did everything right yesterday. This race around, it was messy, wasn't it? He broke the wing. It was, you know, it was just one of those things. It is probably harsh by a point, I would say, but at the end of the day, got to be cruel to be kind. It is the cruel corner after all, and I have awarded Edoardo Mortara 4 points for that. Doesn't deserve slating or berating for anything. Doesn't deserve a lottery, of course, but at the end of the day, it was self-inflicted. Did cost the chance of a point or two for the team, sadly. Next up, we come to the second of the ERTs with Dan Tinctum, and as I already mentioned in yesterday's episode, he is on a final warning, so if he does anything wrong, or I deem to be wrong, erratic, off the pace, etc., I will disqualify him. This race, he escapes that disqualification. He is on his final warning now, so he really can't mess about. I'm certainly not going to be giving him any sympathy, but this time around this race, a 40-place grid drop he had to take in qualifying for the component changes. I think they changed gearbox and some other bits and pieces. So 40 places, obviously you can't serve that full 40, even if you qualify on pole, so no matter where he qualified, he was going to have to serve a penalty in the race. So on the first lap, came into the pits, did a 10-second stop and go, and was thankful then obviously to be able to get a safety car, to be able to try and gain a couple of places. But I suppose in this racing instinct itself, it's sort of all over at that point. You've just got to make sure you get the best out of the car, best out of the situation, and he didn't bring the car home with damage. That's probably all the ERT squad could ask for. Sete Camera wasn't able to make the way forward. I don't think Dan Tinctum could have really done either with the efficiency of that powertrain and the lack of laps. So I've gone for 4 for him as well. 4 to Dan Tinctum, not singing his praises by any stretch of the imagination, but not his fault that he's down here. If it had been down here on merit with no penalties, then fair enough, he'd have been out of here. But yeah, 4 to Dan Tinctum. He's been saved this time. Next up, we come to Jordan King in the second of the Mahindras. And yeah, the rookie, not really much to show for this one, I'm afraid, really. I don't know if he came into difficulty or into strife, or whether it was just a lack of pace. You know, finishing behind his teammate Mortara, who did have difficulty, is a little bit unusual. I can't remember if Jordan King had to pit or whether he did sustain some damage. I'm not quite sure. But either way, you know, the rookies this weekend overall, they've been thrown in at the deep end. It was going to go wrong at some point for someone. Jordan King, this isn't a great finishing position for him, so I've gone with 4. 4 to Jordan King. At the end of the day, he's brought it home clean and tidy, and not made any silly errors or mistakes throughout the weekend. That's as fair as I can give him for this race overall. You know, no damage, but again, no points, and not close to him either. So, yeah, a shame, but I don't want to be too harsh. At the end of the day, he is a rookie. 4 to Jordan King. Finishing behind Jordan King, we come to Norman Nato in the Andretti. And there we have it, Lotterer of the Week to Norman Nato for absolutely assaulting Sasha Fenestras and for squeezing Pascal Wehrlein in the wall on the opening lap as well. Let's not forget that. He's not getting away with that one either. But the main bulk of the reason why he was given the Lotterer of the Week was for that absolutely ridiculous move on Sasha Fenestras. It was like Andre Lotterer was in that bloody car. I know he was here today. He was in the paddock for the second race, wasn't he? But yeah, It was like he was driving the bloody thing. He absolutely harpooned him. He just stuffed him straight into the wall, didn't he? Absolutely ridiculous. I think he's had a 10-second time penalty added to his time or something in the race, which is ridiculous when you're already down here anyway. But yeah, Norman Nato, not a good look. I mean, starting the race in P3. Let's have a look. Just take stock of Andretti this weekend. You know, absolutely nowhere in race 1 and secured no points whatsoever, which is a devastating result after looking like they were going to salvage some points from that race. Here in race 2, they've turned around the qualifying fortune. I don't know if that's going to stay or not, but P1 and P3, what are you expecting out of that? Only 10 points? With one car? Absolutely not. You'd expect both cars inside the top 5 minimum, wouldn't you? But it wasn't to be. Norman Nato, his own worst enemy this race, caused a lot of damage to his car, obviously stuffed Fenestraz into the wall, and yeah, earned himself a Lotterer of the Week. Next up, we come to the final finisher in the race. It is, of course, Stoffel Vandoorne in the DS Pen. And there we have it, Lotterer of the Week to Stoffel Vandoorne as well, for the ridiculous lunge he made on Sasha Fenestraz. Everyone wanted to kill Sasha Fenestraz this weekend, didn't he? Missed his braking point, tried not to arse-end Sasha, so tried to go up the inside of him, tipped him onto 2 wheels, tipped him into his teammate as well, of course. Teammate of Vandoorne, not teammate of Sasha Fenestraz, but yeah. Ended up coming to blows, ripping his front wing off. The team told him ridiculously to stay out, so he did a slow lap around then, a full slow lap. Ended up coming into the pits and then was a lap down, so that was his race over and done with. If he'd have pitted straight away, maybe, just maybe, he could have gone not a lap down, but it's only like a minute a lap, so it would have been a difficult one. But, you know, the opportunity was taken away. But nonetheless, that's not, you know, I'm not blaming the team for that at all. You know, they said to keep going, try and stay out. Didn't work out, but all that damage was caused by Stoffel Vandoorne absolutely harpooning the side of Sasha Fenestraz and causing big damage to his own car. Tipping Fenestraz onto 2 wheels. Was lucky to keep going in that moment, but Norman Nato finished him off, didn't he? So that was a shame for Sasha. But yeah, overall, another disappointing race for Stoffel Vandoorne. Points were possible. He didn't get them. He just came back with damage. What a shame. I can't believe he's a champion in this, isn't it? It really is. But yeah, Stoffel Vandoorne, Lotterer of the Week to him. Then we come to the list of retirements. Of course, there is 2 on this list. The last to retire in the race, the first on this list, is of course Sasha Fenestraz. As already mentioned, can't really say much more about his race other than he was hit heavily by Stoffel Vandoorne and was lucky he was able to keep going. But then Norman Nato decided he was going to finish him off, absolutely shuffled him off into the wall, broke his steering and everything. He made a right mess of it, was stuffed into the wall quite heavily there. Damage for Fenestraz, damage for the Nissan team that they didn't really need to be fixing, but there you go. Yeah, just due to 2 silly incidents that were needless. 2 silly incidents were needless and they ended up being on the same guy. So yeah, Sasha Fenestraz, he was retired midpoint of the race, I would say, just after midpoint to be fair. But how his race was going, it was looking like he was going to score more solid points. Was it going to be anything really, really special? No, I don't think it was going to be a podium like Roland. And was I going to say, yeah, he's off the pace in comparison to his teammate? Yes, I probably would have done. But overall, he deserved points. He was in the position to score points. It was just shoveled out of the way on too many occasions that weren't his fault. So for retirements, as you already know, they can only score a maximum of 5 points, and that is what Sasha Fenestraz is getting. 5 to Sasha Fenestraz, that weren't his fault at all this weekend. On for a good result once again inside the points, even if it's not special like I'm hoping he can do, and I'm hoping he can close the gap to Ollie Rowland in terms of pace and management with the energy, etc. But yeah, didn't deserve that. 5 to Sasha Fenestraz. And then last but by no means least, we come to Maxi Gunter in the second of the Maseratis. And there we have it, a Lotterer of the Week to Maxi Gunter, his first of the season, which is a big disappointment. Yesterday I said, look how unlucky he was. You know, he just caught the back of that car and, you know, just meant that the wing folded underneath his wheels and he just popped himself into the wall. He had no steering at that point. That was unfortunate. That was unlucky. Today, I'm afraid, he went and did the exact same thing at the exact same turn. So I'm sorry, but that has to be Lotterer worthy. That, you know, once is a mistake, once is fair enough, but to do it twice in 2 races, the same corner and the same thing, that's just silly. That's just silly. So yeah, Maxi Gunter, a disastrous weekend this weekend after what was already looking like it was going to be a promising weekend, you know, solid enough qualifyings. He had opportunity, he had pace, he had the efficiency of the car to get inside the top 5 in both races. At an absolute minimum, if it all went wrong, he was going to be picking up points in both races. But here we have it, nil point on the board. I can't believe it. I honestly can't believe it. It's like we've seen the Gunter of last season return at Berlin, but the Berlin last season for Gunter was absolutely fantastic with a P1 and a P3, was it? Or P1, P2? It was ridiculous. That rejuvenated his championship last year after being shunt all the way up until that point. Here we've had some fantastic performances from him all the way through the season, and here we have it now all of a sudden where he scored no points at all due to 2 silly errors, but made the same error twice, and that second race was unforgivable. I'm sorry, I'll let him off in the first race because, you know, that was unlucky. But here, doing it at the same time, again in the same corner, very, very silly. So yeah, Lotter of the Week 2, Maxi Gunter. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Berlin E-Prix. Round number 2 here. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is after this race weekend. And if you're already wondering, as mentioned, where on earth is Buemi, France, etc., they will all be returning next time out for the double header at Shanghai. And I look forward to seeing how they're going to place in the standings once I score some scores for them. But for now, nonetheless, this is how it is. It'd be a shame to see all the rookies vanish and disappear. Some have done really, really well. Others have struggled a little bit, but at least they've brought the car home. And yeah, it was nice to see a lot of rookies get their opportunity. I hope for some of them it isn't their last. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you all in a couple of weeks' time once again for the Shanghai doubleheader in China, of course. Be interesting to see how we get on there. New track, new circuit, new country for the Formula E team. Well, not new country, they did China before, but you know what I mean. So yeah, let's wait and see how that goes. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all for the Cruel Corner then. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.